And we are recording.
Awesome. So yeah, the dogs will be making appearances throughout the evening because I'm talking. Um, don't say get the hell off me. So I actually wanted to start by saying a couple things. I fucking love you guys. Uh, the last year has been a roller coaster, and between you guys, all the readers, the Carew readers who stuck with me through 6 really bad years, um, y'all have literally made a lifelong dream come true for me, and I can't say enough how much I appreciate it. So there's that. Uh, where there's a chat for this channel? Oh, there, I see it. Sounds good. Let me just give you all this in the chat there. Special special talk thing for y'all. And I will say that I have a feeling no matter how long the discussion goes, we will be ending at 9 o'clock because at 9:15 y'all going to be busy. That is it. Yes, there's going to be a drop tonight at 9:15. Y'all, my PC is actually in my bedroom. It's 10 feet away from my bed. And if I don't mute this damn thing, I can't get any damn sleep because of y'all. I'm ready. I don't know yet. Sorry, I haven't had a need for it, so I don't really have it yet. There you go. Blackwood. Eventually, probably, maybe. We'll see. See, in honesty, I've said before that I kinda learn the story as it goes, and that's God's honest truth. I know in general what's gonna happen, but once the writing starts, there are voices in my head, and they do what they want. For instance, I did not expect, Sam to be a love interest. She was gonna be the quirky sidekick, and then shit happened. Yeah, that's mild. Yeah, no, I don't see anything I need to respond to. Thank you for, saying I handled it well. That was a surprise to have to handle. So I wish I had a pithy answer to why, Umberto Eco, when he wrote, The Name of the Rose, he was interviewed and they asked him why he wrote it. It's a murder mystery set in a medieval monastery. And he said, "I felt like poisoning a monk," which I always thought was the greatest answer for why you wrote a book. I wish I had one for Warlock. Um, I wanted to fuck a redhead. Let's go with that. And then, as far as other Harem, yeah, I'm working on the book formerly known as Grinder. Um, Warlock's going to be a long run, though. Um, I honestly expected it to be a little bit like Harry Potter, um, one book a year. So where we're at, not yet done with book three, that was supposed to be one book. Um, and it didn't work out that way. So having started writing in the genre and seeing how much depth I can do in the relationships and everything, I'm just letting loose because that is my favorite thing to write. Um, Action sequences, sure, yeah, that's fun, but digging into relationships and just people sitting around and talking. I wrote 7,000 words for one date coming up in, we won't say for who, but in Warlock 3, which is a lot for one date. But I think it's going to be good. I think you'll like it. I don't have it up, but yeah, yeah, I want to answer it, but it would be a spoiler for something else. There's gonna be a very good bit that has to do with that, and it's coming up. Not in book 3, but it's coming up. So I don't wanna spoil that, but that topic will come up at some point. I do not have it all planned out. I know um, a couple have come out through the writing that I'm pretty sure of. Uh, a couple in writing 3 kind of threw me a curveball that I wasn't expecting. Um, like I say, I find out as the writing goes. Um, so I was surprised by a couple things. Um, uh, maybe 3 that I'm absolutely certain of at this point. Everything else is just open to the story occurring.
One thing I wanted to circle back on, because Asgrim asked to clarify this, did you mean by like one book written per real life year, or one book covering a year of in-book time?
In book time. Yeah, the original plan was 1 book per school year. Um, so I was planning on 4 books. Um, around about the time I started moving scenes that I'd already written for that 1 book into the 3rd one, I realized it's gonna be significantly bigger than that, and I was really, really pleased by that because I have never in my writing had such an open canvas for the type of writing that I really like to do. Um, one of the I write pretty good characters, and I really enjoy writing female characters. And now I'm going to have 13 plus of them to write. Um, Noah's kind of the foil off to the side so that I can write the girls in some cases. So right now we're looking at 3 books per school year, so 12, and then a wrap up is what I've kind of got planned in my head. And I already have the last line of the 13 books written, and I won't say anything more than that.
This next one comes from Hudsonizer. They did kind of have a little bit of a mean question, but I thought it was good enough of a joke and enough of a serious tone possibly behind it that it was worth still asking. And Hudsonizer says, okay, why won't Noah grow boobs temporarily to appease Sam? Compromise is important in relationships after all.
Well, I mean, he was asked that the first time he's ever had sex. That's a big ask the first time. You got to lead up to that and, build up some points to get that sort of thing done.
Next question comes from Silent Monk. And they say, have you already decided on Morgan's POV chapter, and can you share any details?
I have not. I know I'm going to do one. I've got a ton of things for the different extra chapters that are on my list. But I haven't decided on what to do for Morgan. I might just go back and look at feedback and see what people are asking for. What do you want to see? Um, those extra chapters are, for the most part, are driven by you guys on Patreon. What if comment and say what you want? I put it on the list, and if something strikes me, I write it. But if there's a large desire for one in particular, I can do that. Some other things I just write, like Sam's birthday. I needed some time ago to clarify what happened, why she came to Willamere, and what the source of her intimacy, that the part of the oath that is personal, uh, was. And so I started writing. I knew something had to have happened on her birthday, so I started writing that, and that clarified it for me and moved on. So I gave it to y'all. Um, so there'll be more of those that are just written because I need to. Um, but other than that, the feedback that I get on Patreon will drive, for the most part, what I do for the extras.
Silent Monk did ask kind of a follow up in the chat here, and Hudson, I just said that wasn't a joke, but Silent Monk asked to clarify, like, can you expand to other POV chapters you have planned? So basically, is there anything that's kind of in the oven, so to speak.
Yeah, let me see here. I got to bring up the Scrivener project and see what my empty folders look like here. There we go. So,
Now people are going to be checking the reflection off of your glasses. I hope you know that.
we're going to have a point of view for the Milena talking to Prima Rosethorn about Noah, that first discussion. We're going to have that at some point. Uh, um, we're going to have well, I'm calling it Sam's point of view. She will probably be the primary character, but it's going to be her point of view during the time that Noah and Cassandra were kidnapped. Um, and this one has dog spit on my screen, so I can't read it. Uh, there's been some requests for some stuff about Jennifer, so I've the vampires. So I've got a couple ideas. One of them being her turning to go through, and I think that's all I have in the list that's new. So um, suggest things about Morgan and which scenes you'd like to have from her point of view, and we'll go for it. And I see somebody saying more Priscilla, and I remember somebody, I think, was talking about a good point of view scene would be Priscilla finding out about the deal that Noah made with her mother. So that'll go on the list. The issues from the prologue will be resolved in book 3. So I Swedish, yeah. So I've seen the requests about that before. The issue is that this tradition um, came out of Greece, moved up into Europe, and is very Eurocentric. So the witches themselves, as we see them, the Willowmere witches, the covens and things like that, are very white. Um, there are other traditions in the world, in the Warlock universe. Um, and one of the things that I considered in making it so Eurocentric was, how do I get someone from a different tradition into the coven? Because it's completely different. It's different deities, it's different traditions, it's different power. Um, and I didn't think it would necessarily be respectful to those traditions to bring someone from it into another one. Rather, as the series goes on, we will meet and see people who follow those traditions, if that makes sense. And there's a question in the chat about vampires and whether witches can be vampires and stuff. Um, much about the vampires will be revealed, but not in book 3. Well, some hints will be in book 3. We'll give it that.
Looking for, there it is. Okay, cool. Interesting. Test.
Yeah,
Okay, we're good.
oh, damn, I hit my glasses. Yeah, somebody said it's like recasting Black Panther as a white guy, um, and that's how I feel about it too. If I'm going to have a black person, whether male or female, in the story, they're either going to be from Africa and follow African traditions as faithfully as I can come up with, or they're going to be from, say, Louisiana and follow the more African American traditions that kind of got melded and merged in that area and became uh, culture.
The next one comes from Trevane. They say, is the story going to stay around the school, or will we get to see more of this magical world? We know that there are European witches in the name of a Scandinavian school. Will we get more information about the rest of the world? For that matter, this is a long one. For that matter, is Willamere the only North American school? A magical school with about 450 students seems a little low for for a magical population of around 400,000. Evenly dividing it by age would suggest around 4,000 per year. So the 18 to 22 group should have around 16,000 potential students. What do the other 90% in that age group do? See, this is why math is evil, and children should, at all ages groups, avoid it completely.
So yeah, math. Believe it or not, I love spreadsheets. I have a spreadsheet for everything. But yeah, there are other schools in North America. There are schools in Europe. Um, just as with like the spell stick teams, I have mapped out what the professional league looks like and what areas have teams and where they're based and what they're called, um, which I have written down now, except for the Willamere one, which I seem to not be able to remember from one book to the next. Uh, but those will be introduced as they're relevant to the story. But there are other schools. um, Now, not every witch in that 18 to 24 age bracket goes to a college. Um, Given the families and everything, some they feel just aren't worth sending. They're going to be working in the kitchen or what have you. So that's their job. That's all they need to learn. But there are a lot of other schools around the world.
Next one comes from Omega 13 JAS or JOS. And they say, what was the goddess so distracted by during the Salem witch trials and raising of the veil?
So yeah, that was answered in the last preview chapter. She gave a list of some of the things, and it was interesting for me in doing the research on it that there's this time that's Salem, and we think kind of, well, that's what happened. There was Salem, but around the world at that time, the Black Death was reoccurring all over the world. Smallpox was rampant. Um, it was well within the little ice age. There was cold and famine everywhere. It was a shitty time, to be honest. So the goddess was working on those things and kind of hears Mel say, "Hey, I need this thing." She said, "Well, that's a good idea. Okay." Um, Not paying enough attention, and she's very sorry for that.
This next one comes from Vin, and then this this is actually cool. Vin with the cent sign at the end, so Vincent. Uh, and this one is a really long one. I hope you read this because at the end of it, he had a really awesome kind of thank you note to you.
I read that, and thank you, dude. That was very kind. I enjoyed reading that a lot. Thank you.
Trying to figure out how to like word this exactly. I should have kind of prepped this one better, but basically it kind of summarizes down into you went from working a day job prior to Warlock to writing full time, and what was it like to finally be able to rely on income from a creative pursuit, essentially? And then yeah, like an awesome like. I mean, obviously, I get a couple of perks being in the position I'm in. This is definitely one of the coolest ones, is getting to see stuff like this.
It the last year has been one of the best experiences of my life. Um, I was close to going full time at one point with the Carew series. Um, I had it all worked out, and in fact, when I met my wife, one of the things that I told her to let her know that um, what was coming was I have a plan to become a professional. This was back in 2016. I'm going to become a professional author. I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to buy an RV. I'm going to drive all over the country and just write. And I was really close to doing that, but I was trying to replace a computer software developer salary. So I wanted to replace that. Funny thing, if you get close to replacing a salary with a second income, it's like having two salaries. And that is tough to turn away from. So I waited and I delayed, and then crap around 2020 happened, which made me glad that I wasn't driving around the country in an RV. Um, but also around that time, I don't know, some of you are probably aware from my posts in Carew and everything, if you follow that. Um, but I started feeling odd in 2020. I didn't get COVID or anything, but when the lockdown happened, I was like, oh shit, I don't have to drive to work anymore. That's 2 hours a day I get back. I'm going to write 3 books this year. Yeah, and nothing happened. And I didn't publish another thing until Warlock. Um, and it turned out that, well, after several years, I started listening to my wife, my daughter, and my best friend who said, dude, you're depressed. And I was like, no, I can't be depressed. I have an objectively great life. I have a wife that I love. I have kids that are perfect. I have a great job. I got nothing to be depressed. Turns out it doesn't work that way. So I finally listened to him in October of 2023, and I saw somebody. I got some meds, and I started feeling better, and I started writing more. Um, but in doing that, I realized how much my day job had changed. It had gone from someplace that I had worked 27 years at that job, with that company, and we were bought out by a much larger company, and things were changing. We started hearing things like, um, "You should be booking 45 hours a week minimum because you don't have to commute anymore." And that didn't strike me well. And it's not that I didn't want to work more hours. There were times where I worked, 80 hours a week, for 3 months straight while we were working on a problem. It was the expectation that that would be the norm that became an issue. And then managers started coming back from meetings with the higher corporate offices saying, it's a badge of honor now to uh, lose your vacation time because you don't use it by the end of the year. And I was like, that's some bullshit. Because I'd been there 27 years. I had 8 weeks of vacation time. I was going to use that shit. Um, and so over the course of a couple years leading up to last summer, I got really, really disillusioned with the job, especially when they gave me the rewrite of several projects that had been originally estimated as over a year each. They told me I was going to do it with contractors from overseas, and I was going to do it by the end of the year. And they didn't hire any contractors until June. So we got multiple multi-year projects that I'm supposed to do in 6 months with people I don't know. And if you've never hired contractors before, God, some of them. Um, and then I found out that that was a test of my supervisor. They didn't expect it to get done. They were testing how well he could manage me for his promotion, which seemed odd. So, summer of last year, I decided, this isn't going to work out. I got to try something. And I took a leave of absence from August to November to kind of think about it. And what I did is I started writing more because I was leave of absence. I wanted to see if I treat writing as a job, how productive can I be? What is the lifestyle like? Do I want to do this? And so I finished Warlock, published that beginning of October. I had already decided I'm going full time. No matter what happens, I'm going full time. I'm going to give it a year. I figured I'd be living off my 401k for 12 months and see if I can get close to where I needed to be. Um, and you guys got me there in a month. October covered my bills. Now I was in a position where October royalties don't get paid until the end of December. So November, I was gonna give them notice through the end of the month. So I had that paycheck. I came back on November 4th and said, I'm retiring, which is actually a funny story because the Sunday before I was due back, I wrote up my letter of resignation, retirement, got it in a PDF, emailed it to myself at work so that I'd have it there for, I'm going to talk with my manager, say, this is what I'm doing. Here's the letter. Turns out when I went on leave of absence, they forwarded all my email to him. So 6 o'clock in the morning, cold, he gets an email that is no subject, no body, just an attachment PDF that says retirement resignation. And I felt bad for him because he's a decent guy, and that I'm sure he was not happy about that. But it's like, I was trying to do the right thing and ease him into it and shot it at him cold. And then I didn't feel so bad later because he and his manager had already decided what my project for the 2 or 3 weeks of notice was going to be. And way back in the day, we made the mistake of starting with this project called or product called WebSphere. It's an IBM product. It's a Java web server type of thing, application server. The guy who invented it at IBM was once interviewed and asked, "What was your biggest technology mistake in your entire career?" And he said, "WebSphere." Uh, it was a system that I actually bought a bottle of 40-year-old Tawny Port that I was going to open when we finally got rid of that system as a celebration. And I had said several times over the last, decade or so, if y'all ever make me work in WebSphere again, I'm quitting. I won't do it. I will walk out the fucking door with no notice. I will rage quit in a heartbeat. And he told me he wanted me to get a particular WebSphere thing done as my last project that we had already had two contractors in who screwed us and did not do the actual work. And I told him the next day, nah, I'm gone. 'Cause I warned him I'm not going to work on that shit again. It was a horrible system.
Grimsnort said
But yeah,
on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, y'all, I haven't touched my 401k thanks to you guys. It was amazing. It was a huge leap of faith because 57 years old, no real discernible savings other than retirement because I pump everything into that thinking, if an emergency happens, I've got a credit card, I'll pay it off later. Um, and my book sales at the time were lower than they were the first year that I published Into the Dark, the first of the Carew series. After that long without a new release, things had gone down where they were lower than the first, month. Um, and god damn, Warlock fixed it.
Grimsnort said that he wanted to make sure that we, as the community, thanked your wife for everything she's done.
She is incredible. Um, we met in 2015, 2016. And it's odd 'cause she has autism. Um, she has really bad social anxiety, and she doesn't speak. She uses sign language, so I had to learn sign language, and I have discovered so much being with her. She is literally the gentlest person I can imagine. If we're driving down the road and there's an ant in the car, she will show me, and I have to pull over and find the ant a good home. Um, but yeah, and then when she started editing, and she's really grown into that because at first it started, she was just fixing grammar, punctuation, and stuff like that, and clear errors. Um, and then she has started giving more and more opinions. This doesn't seem right. Maybe this. Um, and she's usually right. I can't honestly think of a time that I've argued with her about something like that and then published or done a preview, and enough people haven't said the same damn thing. And I said, okay, fine, you're right. Um, as an example, the book formerly known as Grinder, um, she made the point he doesn't seem to have enough urgency about the situation. And I was like, what's he going to do? The door's locked. He can't get in. She kept saying it, and she was right. Y'all show me that.
There's gonna be a few very happy people to hear that.
If the gist of it isn't going to change, but I'll try to make the logic much clearer and have them be a little more urgent. Because in honesty, um, it's a fine line in something like that once he's through the door about how often do I show him being upset and urgent before he can get back? You know, if it's every other paragraph, then it becomes wearing. If it's too little, then he doesn't, he's not sympathetic. So that's something I'm going to be working on in revisions.
These next few, I'm gonna go a little rapid fire on, so we can try to get as many in as we
Oh,
can
hold on.
before the stop.
Hold on. Somebody said you can swear in ASL now. I don't use ASL. She does, so I understand it. But I have a bad habit of interrupting her because I'm talking, she's just moving her fingers, so nobody else is talking, so I've got 50 years of habit built up that if the other person isn't talking, I can talk. Not the case, but I interrupt her a lot. She tells me I'm not finished, but the sign for not is this, and I'm pretty sure that that's also Italian for something. Sis, you haven't been yelled at until you've been yelled at in sign language.
But yeah,
Somebody else got a question. Sorry. Somebody's
it's
asking
you, man.
about Carew getting a big bump. Carew didn't get a bump from Warlock, but I finally, after 6 years, released the seventh book in the series, and that got it some love. So it's coming back, and hopefully 8 will get it back on track when I release that first quarter.
If I go too quick, let me know. But I'm just going to go through these as quick as I can. I'm probably going to butcher this one, but this one is from Met ZJC, and this is will the readers get an understanding? I'm paraphrasing there of Fjordgrain's, and I know I'm butchering that. Interest in Morgan, Firegrains. I hope you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it. It's Irish Gaelic, and the Irish have a joke. Hi, I'm Irish. My name has 7 silent letters. Um, her service, my wife's service dog is actually named Queevnosh, which is Irish for guardian, and it's spelled C. And I'm just going to type it because of so tell me how you get Queevnosh out of that. But sorry, what was the other question? Oh, yes, that arc is going to be resolved in book 3.
This next one is from Richter. What happens to a warlock that fails multiple marking contests?
Well, he can because once he loses one, he's marked. So I see what the question is. He may not be able to mark a witch, but she wouldn't be able to mark him. It would be a sort of failure. Yes, they can they it can fail.
Next one is from Mark with a K. How many books do you think this story arc and any spin offs will have? I think you kind of answered earlier a little bit.
Yeah, so it's going to be 13, and people are already mentioning, spin-offs, other characters and stuff like that. And so I, I may after book 3 get a wild hair. I mean, I'm already plotting book 4, but I may get a wild hair to do a little, you know, Melon Italy or something like that.
This next one I feel like is going to be a pretty involved one. This is one that I kind of had my eye out for when it came up because I feel like this would be the one that had the longest or most elaborate explanation. If you think it's going to be super long, maybe do like a typed up description or explanation, or if you can give like a 60-second answer just for time's sake. But this is from B Witty. Love be witty. How does a high priestess get added to another coven? To elaborate, Cassandra knew the warlock she was to mark, but it was never discussed who would be marking her to move the power up the coven. And it seems odd they would leave a coven open at 12 and forgo the power of a full 13 for any amount of time. It seems a witch from an established coven would come down to mark the new warlock. In junction with this, how do they have an unmarked witch take over the coven high priestess role when it opens up?
So I will do a sort of essay or something on this. In general, um, the candidates to replace the high priestess aren't marked. So the pyramid isn't really a pyramid; it's a pyramid with little offshoots. So that there are covens and paths that are used for that purpose. Prepping a new high priestess. There are multiple candidates at any one time in case, um, for for instance, if Cassandra's mom were to say Cassandra had marked her warlock and had a coven, if Cassandra's mom died, Cassandra wouldn't be able to mark that warlock. Somebody else would have to. So we're building up those candidate covens. And even if Cassandra were next in line for that, there are other covens that have been building up earlier that are maybe what's the word in the inheritance structure? They're not first in line, but maybe they're second or third in line, and maybe they've been built up longer. So there's a lot of politics and power struggle sometimes if the selected one isn't entirely ready. The utility line is different. They are smaller, well, less powerful covens that aren't in the full hierarchy. They have other purposes, and I'll cover that in an essay because I have notes, but if I were to publish them, uh, you wouldn't get anything from the notes.
This is one of the cooler ones from Calatrax. The first rituals class heavily implies Shakespeare was a warlock. Are there witch world only plays, and are the witches of Macbeth and A Midsummer Night's Dream misdirection or accurate?
Well, so we don't know exactly who Shakespeare was, and if a warlock were to write plays, he'd probably try to remain, anonymous or not be as noticeable. Um, on the other hand, Cassian is from not that far from an area that produced Ensign Chekhov, so she may have thoughts about, witches and what they've contributed to culture the same as he did.
Is that why the bard has vicious mockery? I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. This next one is from Richard Cartwright. One, what city is Mel's Brownstone located in? Two, how long is the spellstick season? Three, how many schools does Willowmere play against? Four, where are the professional spellstick teams located other than Boston and New Orleans?
There's a lot there. Um, so yeah, I've seen that. I hate to break the discussions about what the city is. Um, so in my head, the city is New York, and Willowmere is north of there, about a 2-hour train ride. Um, when I was doing the scene in the basement with Noah trying to figure out what time it was, and I was giving Jennifer's answer to sunrise and sunset, I was typing it and I said, no, no, because some son of a bitch somewhere is going to do something. Y'all did. I forget who it was, but somebody looked up the times and tried to figure out and coordinate where that was you. All right. Um, so yes, your confusion was deliberate on my part because it would have put it's a fictional town at that point. And I'm not getting into, naming New York or trying to do too much about the architecture there because it's a city like that almost becomes a character, and I want to kind of leave it generalized. And there were multiple parts to that question. One was about the spell stick teams, other than New Orleans. So um, the U.S. and Canada and Mexico are kind of broken into districts, and then which districts. Different families have more power or control in different districts, and they're the ones who actually have a spell stick team. Typically, one or two of the most powerful families in an area have a team. So it's Boston in the Northeast, it's New Orleans in the Southeast, um, and I think I'll hold off because there's value in the discovery that's coming around the spell stick season. It ends in June, um, so that's when the final games are. The professional season runs more longer than the uh, college season. So college season starts after the first semester and runs through June. The professional season, think of it more like hockey. New York does have a team because New York is always special. Well, so trying to think of how to explain this. It's level of complexity and the power needed. So there's friction at every point in dealing with energy, with magic. So I can do something with raw power, and in fact, there's going to be a discussion later about this in book three, but it's not a spoiler to give the details. So the purpose of a spell or a plea or a rite or a ritual in that order of complexity is to focus the will and intent. So the uh, the consanguinity rite a powerful enough witch could have gone bang, show the lines, um, which are pathfinding. By the way, I saw some discussions about how it branched out rather than a direct line. It's pathfinding year by year by year by year, trying to find the path to the target. Um, so all of those things, a spell concentrating, maybe finger gestures may come up at some point, or particular words are focusing the will and intent of the caster. And then as we move up into the covens, more and more